All right, so welcome to another night of coding with Carlos. This is another random series where I do projects for fun and side projects that I just enjoy. So today we are going to be working on Notion bot. So Notion is actually a note taking app, and they just released an API, and that's pretty exciting, to be honest. And I just decided I'm going to build this Notion bot or Botion. Then so it's kind of bringing basically the capabilities of Zapier or of automate.io or monday.com to Notion, which is pretty static at this point. So let me just show you what I mean with this. All right, so Notion just released the API, and you can apply for it. And I'm going to show you quickly in a bit how that works. So firstly, I'm just going to show you what Notion is. So Notion is a note taking app, but has a lot of different functionalities. You can add a different task, for example, here, and you can add different tags. So tag 4, for example, or you can add even different views and like defining, for example, define a board. You can create a board, and that shows you everything in a kind of canvas board, and basically has a lot of different things. But one of the things that I found pretty annoying is that it doesn't have any kind of automation. So it's just pretty static, and it counts on you actually doing all the work. And basically I thought they released an API, so why not make something pretty cool with Notion? So, firstly, what we are gonna build is the following. This is kind of the thing that I just thought. So on one hand, we have Notion. So this is the big Notion thing. So we have the UI of Notion, and we have the API that they just released. So what I thought is we could have a UI, so a Chrome extension that basically injects a bit of a UI inside of Notion. And then we can actually let people write different scripts, or use some kind of UI that is easy to program as well. And so basically that is going to import some kind of a script that is going to be stored in the server in our database. And so this is kind of how it communicates. So they write the scripts, and it comes to the server. Server stores it in a database, and then periodically, depending on what kind of subscriptions we have, so we are going to be querying the Notion API, getting the data, finding changes, and then triggering automations depending on whatever automation scripts that we have on the server. And that's pretty much actually the setup. That's actually what we're trying to do here. It is so ideally, we're going to have only the server and a Chrome extension to maintain. And well, in the future, probably some kind of UI so you can register and all of that. All right, so now back to Notion. So the first thing is how you can create. So yeah, let me actually firstly show you what I actually built for Notion. So this is the Chrome extension, by the way. So you click. So the point is that something is injected into the actual Notion, and that is coming from a Chrome extension that injects that. And when you click it, it opens some kind of model, and you're gonna be able to program it and do some kind of cool thing here. All right. So the first thing that we need to do is actually create an API to get some kind of API token. So in order to do that, you have to go to notion.so/myintegrations, and then you create a new integration. So when you create an integration, you just need to give it a name, whatever, like something, whatever. And so you create your integration, you just submit that, and that's going to create this badly written extension, and it's gonna give you a token. So you get your token, and then you bring that to your backend in some way. All right, so let me open the code here. So if now I try to, so this is a very simple script that I wrote to handle this. So the first thing I'm doing is that I created a .m file that basically only has one entry. It has this Notion token, and that Notion token is basically the token that's going to grant us the access. So the Notion team created this really nice package for JavaScript or TypeScript, and that is really cool because it has actually types and everything for TypeScript. So the first thing that we do is actually we import the .env and make sure that we have the environment variables in place. Then we actually get the client from Notion HQ client, and we instantiate that. So we initialize the client providing this auth token. And now it's very simple. The only thing that we want to do here is actually query query Notion databases and then get a list of all the databases and just print that on terminal. So if I run that now, this is running, by the way, npm. So npm start is simply running TS node. This is just some boilerplate, but it's just running TS node. So it's like node, but with TypeScript included. So it's actually compiling on the fly. So you don't have to really pre-compile your TypeScript. All right, so this executes and we get a list and with empty results. And this is expected, by the way. So this is expected because what we need to do here is we need to give Notion. So we need to give permissions to our bot. So for example, if I go to share and here I do add. So yeah, the way to do it is basically you go to whatever table and all right, my camera broke. All right, so the first thing that we need to do is actually we go to the database. It has to be a database. It cannot be another table or page. It has to be a database. So you go to your database, then click on share, and then go to the invite or whatever it says that. So you click on that and you select an integration. And then you select your integration. So in this case, it's Botion. So we select Botion. And so we just invite it. And it gives it permissions to actually access. So now if we go back to our code and we execute this again, it's going to hopefully return a bunch of data. So we can see that it is actually returning different properties, like different status and other properties included in the list. So now that we've got the list, we got this ID. And I'm not totally sure if that is the ID that we need, to be honest. Let me check. Because I think the ID that we need is the one that is displayed here. Anyway, so we get the ID from the URL instead. And hopefully that ID should be coming on the API. It doesn't look like it's actually coming from the API. I don't know. That's pretty strange. Because it's like the actual database doesn't. The ID is not actually matching. Anyway, so we move on. So we're gonna do another query, and this query is actually querying the database. So we changed our database ID, we give it our new ID, and we just query it. Basically, just returning whatever is in there. So I'm gonna start again. Let me save this first. All right, so that executes, and it will give us a bunch of data again. So it gives us different objects. For example, this is a page that probably gives us some kind of name. So it has a tag 3 with the color included and the title. What is the text? Task 3, and basically it corresponds to this item in particular. All right, so that's actually for the database. That's a very simple example of how we can actually query Notion API. and it's pretty good. But my only problem with the API at this point is that it doesn't really support triggers or webhooks. So it's all basically just you have to query all the time. And now coming back to the UI, so what we are building is actually a Chrome extension. And this is the Chrome extension that we're going to build. So the point is that what we want is to have some kind of Chrome extension that I will show you here. So this is the Chrome extension, Botion. And what we want is to actually get this Chrome extension installed by whoever wants to do this kind of automations, and then inject different code and some kind of UI directly into Notion. Because an alternative would be that someone actually clicks on the whatever extension, and that actually gives them a different UI, a pop-up they can interact with. But I think it's much better and more intuitive when something is included directly on the UI. So that's actually what we're gonna do. So very quickly, a Chrome extension. If you never build a Chrome extension, I recommend actually reading this post. It's pretty cool, actually. It's a really nice post that explains the whole, like, how you can do it, and it has a boilerplate as well. And I'm gonna put it on the show notes. Right, so you go to the Chrome extension, you can see that. So you go, so in this particular example, like I just stored it on a folder like source Chrome extension. And this Chrome extension is going to have multiple things, but we are pretty much interested on three main things. On one thing that we need is the manifest. So we need to tell Chrome what this extension is, and what's the name, what's the description, what are the different icons, and something very important here is that so Chrome extensions, they can only have a background script and can have also content script. Now, what is kind of tricky here is that a background script is going to be running as it says on the background, and content scripts are going to be injected on a different page. And then there's a fourth thing actually, which is a pop-up. It means that in the end you have different things. So you have a background script, you have a pop-up, and then you have also content scripts that are going to be injected. So in this particular tool that we're going to build, I'm actually very interested in having content scripts running, but I'm not so interested, at least at this point, on having these guys. So I don't need a pop-up and I don't need a background script, but I'm going to have just a simple boilerplate for the time being. So for the actual script, so we can see that what is being injected is a script called content.js. And that script is actually compiled from content.tsx. So if we open that file, it's a pretty messy file because I've been just debugging this. But the goal here is actually, firstly, what I'm doing is I'm creating some kind of container where I can put my app, and I inject my app. I take this is a React application in this particular thing. And so what I do is I create an element, and I just inject that into the body. And after that, I render my React application to that element. And then the next thing I want to do, and this is kind of the tricky thing of the Chrome extension, is to really find out. I want to find actually an element where I can hook into. And for example, in this particular case, I'm actually going to look for this element that has properties. So I'm going to look for this particular element, and then I'm going to inject this other button just close to it as a sibling. So the first thing I do is I realize that there's this class that I can use and a roll button. And what I do is basically after that, I just iterate over it and I find an element that includes properties. So once I found that, then if I get it, so if I get the element, then I actually create a button and I inject that into the tool. Otherwise, what I do is that I'm going to restart this thing, this function itself. The reason why I do this is because sometimes Notion takes a while to load, and that is pretty frustrating. And so it means that basically we need to be checking multiple times until Notion is ready. And I don't have any guarantees on when that is going to be. So this is just a very quick hack that I could figure out. And anyway, so I inject this button, and then I also run the script when it loads, when the window loads, which is pretty close to the end. So this should only run probably like 1 or 2 times. Like, don't think that it will run more times. But yeah, basically that's kind of it. And this button, the only thing it does is that it prevents some kind of default or propagation, just in case that this potentially will trigger something on Notion end, and I don't want to trigger I don't want my button to trigger some kind of Notion related thing. And then I get kind of a store that I have in common with the React application, and I just call open model. And that open model will trigger the entire application and how it opens. So it's using this main store, which is very simple. It just has a model. It's model open, and it has a few methods that can be used to open and close the model. And that's pretty much it, actually. The rest is just a React application that I'm going to go. I'm going to complete, and I'm going to continue working on. And then I will show a better result. Anyway, the code is going to be available. And yeah, please reach out to me, and let's actually build something cool here. I think that, yeah, Notion, these new capabilities this actually opens a whole new door to building integrations with Notion, and I'm actually pretty excited about it, and to see what people build with Notion, and yeah. All right, so yeah, subscribe and let me know in the comments if you have any questions or if we can build something cool. All right, bye.